Hello everybody and welcome back into the kitchen. This is going to be a quick, simple, nice, easy sort of recipe. I'm sure you probably figured that out from the title though. Basically, it's a harvest kitchen thing. We're trying to preserve tomatoes this time of year, and we're trying to do it with, well, some unusual type of things. Drying tomatoes has never really worked for me, so I need to find other ways to preserve them. Everybody cans tomatoes, so that's not exactly new and different. However, I found a recipe in Terrific Tomatoes, I believe is the name of the book. Bought it at a thrift shop, 10 cents. Money well spent, in my opinion. But yeah, tomato butter, a recipe at the back of that we're going to be exploring today. And then there's an option at the end of it to make basil butter. So I, of course, am just basically making tomato butter. There you go. Tomato butter. Stick around. So I like to keep things simple here in my kitchen. This tomato butter is going to be just that. We've got some basil. We have a selection of recently harvested tomatoes. I like the lemon boy here. We've got some delightful sweet 100s. So one indigo rose for that hint of peachiness to all this. And here's one of those black vernissage tomatoes. Not quite sure what this is going to do for flavor, but I think this should make a definite, mixed tomato flavor for it. We've got some fire salts to go in with this because everything around here has to have that chili heat, and it's unsalted butter, so we're going to need some salt. That's all that's going into this, aside from a little effort with the spoon. So let's get started. Shouldn't take too long. Here's my thinking on this. The recipe that I have in that Terrific Tomatoes book calls for a 1/4 pound of butter for the tomatoes, calls for a 1/4 pound of butter for the basil, so I'm just going to go with a 1/2 pound of butter because I'm putting them both in there. Okay, I'm going with a half-ish of a pound of butter. Good to go. Just going to open this up, toss it into the bowl. In theory, I'm going to make a mess because that's what I do. But remember the serious pro tip, if you guys learn anything from my channel, and remember this is not supposed to be an educational channel, so there's a big if there. But if you learn anything from my channel, clean up after yourselves in the kitchen. For the love of your own hide, just clean as you go. That's all I'm saying. We're going to put this aside. We're going to start working our tomato selection. Pretty basic here. Got, it's almost a fillet knife that I like to use for these guys. Pop the tops off. You know what? I need a... Oh, look at that. It's the first one of these ones I've cut open. Again, that's the black vernissage. I think I'm going to scoop those seeds out. Supposed to scoop the seeds out of your tomato anyway, so it doesn't end up all runny. So I forgot to get a spoon and apparently a paper towel. Alright, so I'm just going to scoop these out. Got my handy dandy little John Deere spoon. This thing is great for cleaning out tomatoes. Not a whole lot of effort in that, not a whole lot of wasted flesh. Quick and easy. Yeah, I'm going to have to clean those a little bit better for actual storage. But this is the first year I've grown these in the garden. So this is, the closest I have to a Manitoba Hardy variety of them. And they go so well with those indigo rose because they got the kind of purpley going on. Yeah. Alright. Anyway, I'm going to do that to the rest of those tomatoes. We'll be right back. So, I'm just turning this back on because I've been getting kind of lazy for these cherry tomatoes and just squeezing them to get the seeds out. Gets the vast majority of the juices out, gets the vast majority of the seeds out. And I just kind of realized, I don't know, somebody may either appreciate seeing that as a quick trick or appreciate seeing somebody else do it because they're already doing it too and now they don't feel bad doing it. Anywho, now I have my basically cleaned pile of tomatoes. I got to dice these up nice and small. Should probably remove the skins. Should have thought about that before I got so savage squishing them. But yes. You know what? I'm just going to remove the skins. That's a pretty solid smearing spoon I've got. Plunk tomato flesh in there. carry on. Alright. So here's that black vernissage. This tomato doesn't necessarily lend itself to peeling quite as well. I'll have to come back and work that one over a little better. The indigo rose peels fairly nicely. Now that I'm doing it, of course, it doesn't want to work for me. Ain't that always the case? But bit by bit, getting her done. There's, what is it, blanching your tomatoes or something, where you cook them for, or drop them for a couple seconds into boiling hot water and the skins peel right off. Probably should have done that. This recipe didn't say anything about doing that. So I just went at it with fresh tomatoes. Might be a moral to all of this somewhere along the line. Alright. Back when this is done. So there are two things that you'll find get repeated on my channel a lot. This is not an educational channel. That is the first. The second is the recipe is just a guide. In this case, I left the skins on here. We're hitting it with the hand blender. It's pretty pulverized. And I'm just about to start mashing my butter into that. You'll notice we haven't added the basil yet. There is a reason. Bear with me. So as generally happens around here, the plan has changed just a little bit. Yet again. Remember, the recipe is just a guide. We're actually going to mix it all up in this jar because we've got a cap for it. It'll go in the fridge just fine. My mixing spoon will fit in here. I'm hoping to use the electric hand mixer. We're just going to have to see how this all works out. But enter our tomato puree, sort of. Alright, come here, spoon. Already wasting a little bit of our precious juices there. I want to get this all mixed up though before we start adding basil. And make sure the tomato is kind of the base flavor in the spread that we are making here. So I have no idea if this is going to work, but I'm about to find out. Kind of looks like I just poured a bunch of salsa in there right now. Maybe not my best plan to use the mixer, but it's in there now, so I'm going to mash it around a little bit. Probably end up taking the spoon to it before I'm done. But anyway, figured I'd show you. For a wide variety of reasons, I've switched back to the bowl and the spoon. You know, sometimes the guideline is there for a reason, and I just need to learn to accept that. I've got some fire salt in our grinder here. Just kind of an unknown and random amount. Gonna dump that in there. One thing the recipe didn't kind of warn me about was that the tomatoes really should be strained. So if you're gonna try this at home, let them tomatoes drip in maybe a cheesecloth or something for a while. This has turned into kind of a liquidy mess, and the basil that I'm going to add to it isn't really going to absorb much of anything. So I'm going to start rummaging through the spice cupboard, see if I can find something, well, absorbent to add to this. So I did manage to find a few powdered absorbent type things to add to this, help out our liquid situation. The recipe calls for some onion juice, believe it or not. I'm putting in some garlic powder instead because we need something to suck up some moisture, not add more. Doesn't call for cayenne powder, but it should. So we're putting some of that in there. Unmeasured amount. I tend to think it should also call for some paprika. Between the cayenne and the paprika, I think this is really going to help enhance the color that's going along with our tomato butter anyway. And then from our own dried herbs, I still need to dice these up, but we've got just a few dried sage leaves, a couple sprigs of dried rosemary. These will be nice and absorbent. And then the main herb we want to feature in this though is our basil from the kitchen windowsill plant. So I'm going to make sure this is slivered up nice. At the very end we're going to put that in. But yes, I have some crushing of dried stuff to do. Some mixing. We'll get back in a moment. So I've got that kind of mixed through there. I'm really getting a little excited to see what this is going to taste like. But I'm also thinking I might leave this to hang for a few minutes over the sink in a jelly cloth before we put this in the fridge. Because I don't want to add too many more dried spices to this to try and absorb it. And yeah, ultimately, I can just let it drip. Basil's next. Alright, well I just cut up my second pile of basil kind of my way, which was basically just stacking the leaves and cutting them. I really don't see any point in getting all fancy with these. If you're going to do it, go ahead, use a pair of scissors, rip it up, whatever works for you. Just make it small, because really, I don't think I saved any time rolling up the leaves. I'm sure somebody chefy will hop on into the comments and give me a real good reason why it's got to be done that way. But bear in mind, for the 9 millionth time in this video alone, this is not an educational channel. This is a bear playing in the kitchen, making food from stuff in the garden. Aight? Okay. Now that we have ravaged, savaged, and abused that basil, we're going to rudely dump it in there. Alright. Keep on mixing this back up. And like you can see, and probably even hear, this mic's not that bad. Kind of just how sloshy that is in there. Squishy. So I'm definitely going to hang this into the sink, pretend it's a cheese, give it a little while to drip, and then we will taste this on... Shock's made some homemade tortillas. We were kind of cut doing it, but they were tasty anyway. And I think she's got a video coming up about that in the next little while, so watch for that. Anyway, I'm going to try these, or this, on those, because, yeah, leftovers, and they were good. So this needs to hang. That'll be the next step. Okay, so I realize this is a jelly bag. I don't care. I need some sort of a little stand to put it on or something though. So the lovely Shocks has wisely suggested I put this into a cup or something. I grabbed one of the many empty honey containers from all of that mead making. And really I can just let it drip into that for a few minutes. Awful lot of extra liquid in here. Can't believe the recipe calls for a juice on top of all this. I'm going to clean that out a little bit better. You can kind of see the color going on there. Kind of interesting. Yes, we'll check back on this in a few moments. Okay, well at this point it's starting to remind me of a cheese ball project, which reminds me also I haven't made cheese balls in a while. Might be something to consider. Except I think this time when I do that, I'm going to want to use that homemade cheese recipe. So just squeeze that extra moisture on out of there, I guess. Interesting color at the bottom there. Work it on down. Now, just because it's dripping at the moment, I don't think it means it's actually done. But if I mix this around a bit, I can get a whole lot more to pour out of that. Squeeze it through, squish it up. Well, I've been wrong before. If you don't know that, this must be your first video. Welcome to the channel. Looks like my butterball, which is normally a turkey. Okay, I'm having too much fun with this. Looks like my tomato butter here is basically good to go. Set that out somewhere else. I don't think I'm going to drink that. I think I'm going to sink that. And I do think I need to dry my hands before I can end this clip. And here we are a few minutes later. Our tomato butter cheese log thing basically good to go. Gonna get all kinds of interesting bits of skin and such out of this, but alright. Not sure how well I was thinking this out, but there you go. Once again, wash my hands and then I can taste this. Alright, we've got this nicely warmed up. Fantastic little tortillas that Shocks made for us the other day. So, hopefully, our freshly, can't really call it homemade butter, but we'll call it modified butter. Melt on this for us a little bit. Oh, some nice spread in there. Okay. all the chunks of things, maybe not so good. Obviously, you know, a finer cut on my basil would have been a great thing. Cutting up the skins on the tomatoes would have been a great thing. But that's not really how I roll. So, there we go. Caught that before it hit the floor. Okay, so here we go. The homemade tortilla, the tomato butter. My sizing on the cuts may not have been perfect, but the theory is sound. Well worth giving it a try. Definitely recommend straining it out. Probably before, during, and after. But yeah, might just run this through a blender, see if I can make those bits a little smaller still. But basically, that's done. And for the video, that's a wrap. So thank you for joining me, and definitely tomato butter, give it a try.